Incredible Big Bride uncovers heartbreaking betrayal on wedding day, transforming lives forever. The morning sun blazed through the windows of Sarah's childhood home, drawing out a flurry of excitement that danced in the air like fairy lights filling a summer evening. Family buzzed around, laughter bouncing off walls that had witnessed countless memories. Today, Sarah was to marry her high school sweetheart, Jake. With her heart racing and a smile that could break the clouds, she slipped into her wedding dress, a cascade of white satin that wrapped around her like a hug. But beneath her cheerful exterior lay a dark storm brewing, one that she never saw coming. Sarah's fingers trembled as she clipped the final piece of jewelry in place. When she spotted him, her estranged brother, Mark, standing awkwardly at the threshold. The shadow of their past hung heavily around him, a ghost from a life she thought was behind her. He had been lost to the chaotic winds of war, haunted by echoes of a battle she couldn't begin to understand. Yet today, as she prepared for the most perfect day of her life, his unexpected return stung, a reminder that love and hurt often collide. Just as Sarah found grounding in the familiar warmth of those around her, her heart plummeted as she confronted Jake about an unsettling whisper she had heard. His family, proud and traditional, held fast to their beliefs that love should fit neatly within societal boundaries. "They don't think you're enough, Sarah," Jake admitted, regret pooling in his eyes. The words hit her like a fist to the gut. She felt as if every breath she took was laced with betrayal, chipping away at the foundation of love she had built. "You don't belong to their version of the American dream," he continued, his voice cracking. As shock swept through her, Sarah sent a silent prayer into the universe, pleading for strength. She could feel the vibrant colors of her wedding day dulling to a lifeless gray. Her heart raced, torn between the love she felt for Jake and the realization that perhaps she had meant less than she believed. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. In the midst of the chaos and heartbreak, Mark stepped in, eyes heavy with unspoken truths. Together, they waded into the murky waters of their family's past, as deep-seated prejudices and old grievances washed over them. "We've always run from the pain, Sarah," he said, painfully raw, forcing her to confront decades of hurt. The tension in the air crackled, a reminder of how family binds and breaks us. As the gathered community began to witness their unraveling tale, whispers turned into murmurs, and perspectives shifted. With each word exchanged, Sarah felt her strength return, a flicker of resilience igniting within her. The town that she had once thought of merely as a backdrop began to embrace her, urging her to redefine her worth on her own terms. Yet just as Sarah glimpsed a flicker of hope on the horizon, Mark revealed a devastating family secret. The gathering tightened, breaths held, questions hanging heavy in the air. Could Sarah fight for love when the past and its wounds loomed so fiercely? As her heart raced at the crossroads of betrayal and dreams, she knew one thing: nothing would ever be the same again. The day she had knighted as her perfect wedding would soon change in ways she never imagined. The room grew silent, the air thick with anticipation. Sarah's heart thundered in her chest as Marcus' words hung like a storm cloud overhead. Anguish flickered in people's eyes, mingling with disbelief. "What do you mean a family secret?" Sarah finally managed to ask, though every word felt like it was dragging down a mountain of weight. Mark exhaled slowly, collecting his thoughts. "It's about Mom, how she always wanted us to fit a mold, to be someone we're not. She didn't just push you away, Sarah. She pushed me too." He hesitated, then continued, "The war changed me, but it didn't change how her opinions haunted us both." A murmur traveled through the crowd as Sarah processed his revelation. For years, Sarah had equated their mother's disapproval to her standing in the family. A perfect daughter only defined by how well she complied with expectations. She felt her stomach twist with the realization that her brother's struggles had mirrored her own. They had both fought under the same emotional siege, separated by years of silence and resentment. "Mark, I didn't know," Sarah began, her voice cracking. Deep down, she hoped for comfort in his revelation, but it only fanned the flames of her hurt. "I just wanted to be loved, wasn't that everything? It's twisted, isn't it?" Mark replied, his own voice heavy with sorrow. "We thought love meant stepping into the shadows, contorting ourselves into shapes we didn't recognize." Sarah turned, looking at Jake, who stood frozen. The pain in his eyes mirrored her own, and she wondered if he felt the weight of all that was unraveling. Did he see her as enough? Did love truly conquer all? The question swirled around, unacknowledged. "Is it too late then?" Sarah's voice was barely above a whisper, a plea to anyone who could hear. The crowd drew closer, their faces reflecting a mix of concern and curiosity. Tears pricked her eyes as she bore witness to the ramifications of their family dynamics. Jake stepped forward, his hand reaching out to hers. "We can rebuild, Sarah. We can write our own story. You can define who you are, not those scars." Hope danced momentarily, casting light in the dim room. But just then, as whispers faded into silence, a new voice broke through the tension, a voice they all recognized. "What's happening here?" It was her mother, Susan, standing in the doorway, her expression a blend of confusion and anger. The weight of unspoken history loomed as Susan's gaze swept across the gathered guests. The atmosphere shifted abruptly, tension thickening like fog. Sarah felt a surge of fear. Would this be yet another chance to hide her heart under layers of fear and disappointment? In that moment, with so many unresolved emotions at play, Sarah realized she needed to finally confront her mother. Today wasn't just about a wedding. It had morphed into a reckoning that could redefine everything she had believed about love and family. The moment hung heavy in the air as time slowed. Sarah felt the pulse of the crowd, her pulse quickening. "Mom, we need to talk." Her heart raced as she prepared for the storm that was surely brewing. With Jake beside her and Mark's presence grounding her, Sarah stood poised at the edge of chaos, daring to take the first step toward her truth. But would her mother's reaction rip through their fragile unity, scattering everything once again? As they locked eyes, one thing was certain. The confrontation would change everything. Would Sarah find the courage to stand tall against her mother's shadow? Or would she retreat back to the safety of silence? The definitive moment loomed closer, and Sarah could only hold her breath, wondering what would come next. Susan's eyes narrowed, her brow furrowing as she stepped into the room, arms crossed defensively. The atmosphere crackled with tension, each breath feeling like a push against an invisible wall. Sarah's heart sank further. It was like standing on the edge of a cliff, teetering between courage and fear. "What's this all about?" Susan's voice was sharp, cutting through the uncomfortable silence. It was a tone that sent shivers down Sarah's spine, one that had echoed through their home for years. "We were just talking." Mom Sarah started, but her voice faltered under her mother's stormy glare. "Just talking? Is that what you call it?" Susan's words dripped with disbelief, her gaze flicking between Sarah and Mark. "This isn't the time or the place for your little family dramas." The crowd shifted, sensing the tension, their eyes darting between mother and daughter. The guests, who had come to celebrate love, now froze in the whirlwind of family conflict. "Mom, we need to address the reality of our family," Mark interjected, taking a brave step forward. "The truth is, your expectations have suffocated us both. We can't ignore it anymore." His voice echoed, steady and strong, but Sarah could sense the vulnerability beneath the surface. "Expectations? I only wanted what was best for you," Susan retorted, her voice rising as emotions boiled over. "I raised you both to succeed, to be more than what the world expected of us. More like to fit into your idea of success." Sarah shot back, feeling the words burst forth like a dam breaking. She didn't recognize the boldness surging through her, but it was liberating. "I never wanted to be the perfect daughter, Mom. I just wanted to be me." "Me too." Mark added, the solidarity growing between them. We grew up thinking approval meant losing ourselves. I fought in a war, and now I'm fighting here in our family. A silence hung between them, heavy with unspoken truths. Sarah glanced at Jake, and his presence felt like a lifeline pulling her through the chaos. He hadn't flinched, standing firm beside her. Their connection felt solid, like roots intertwined against the storm. Susan's expression wavered, confusion flickering amidst her anger. You think this is easy for me? That I wanted to stifle you both? The mask of control slipped slightly, revealing a glimpse of her own pain. Then don't. Sarah's voice trembled, but it held a firmness she hadn't expected from herself. Let us be who we truly are. We want to build something real. The room felt electric, a momentary pause like a breath held in anticipation. Susan's shoulders shifted, the tightness in her stance softening ever so slightly. What if I don't know how? She whispered, vulnerability breaking through the harsh exterior. Then let us show you, Mark said, his voice gentler now. We all deserve to find love, to define ourselves outside of what you've always wanted. Tension hung like a mist, yet beneath it, threads of hope began to weave themselves back into the fabric of their family. It was messy, frightening, and uncertain, but it was also alive. Just as Sarah felt a spark of possibility growing in her chest, shaking the grip of years spent in silence, another voice interjected. Are we really doing this? It was Jake again, but his tone was laced with hesitation. Do we really want to uncover all those buried feelings? Can we handle the truth? Suddenly, the room felt heavier as the stakes rose higher. Sarah's heart raced, caught between hope and fear. The confrontation was far from over. Would revealing their truths strengthen their bonds or unravel the fragile connections they had only just begun to forge? All she could do was hold her breath, praying this moment would lead them towards healing, instead of further heartbreak. The road ahead was shrouded in uncertainty, but one question loomed over everything. Were they ready to face what lay hidden beneath their history? Together? The moment hung in the air like a weight, pressing down on everyone in the room. Jake's question lingered, echoing softly off the walls, and the uneasy silence that followed felt as if it could swallow them whole. Sarah could see those familiar faces of friends and family watching, their expressions a mix of concern, curiosity, and disbelief. She felt exposed, the secrets of years spilling out into the open like a jigsaw puzzle with missing pieces. Maybe we need to start somewhere, Susan said, her voice barely above a whisper. Sarah noticed how her mother's arms started to unfold, the rigid stance shifting ever so slightly. It was like watching a tree bend in the wind. But the change was subtle, barely noticeable, and Sarah couldn't help but wonder if it was even enough. What do you mean? Mark broke the silence, the question colored with hope and uncertainty. Susan took a deep breath, and a flicker of hesitation danced in her expression. I want you both to understand why I pushed so hard. I thought I was giving you a future, a better life. But at what cost? Sarah's heart pounded fiercely. We never got to decide what that future looked like. We lived it through your eyes. All we want is the chance to find our own ways. I thought that by preparing you, I was protecting you. Susan stammered, her voice beginning to quaver. You both have so much potential. I thought no. Mark shouted, his courage igniting like a flame. You thought you could make our choices for us. That's not how love works, Mom. We need to trust our instincts. Don't you see? The crowd shifted again, whispers swirling like leaves caught in a gust. Sarah's pulse quickened. She could feel the shared tension tightening the atmosphere. But there was an unexpected warmth radiating from the connection between her, Mark, and their mother. Could they really break through this barrier? Okay, I'll try, Susan finally said, her brows knitting together as she searched for the words. I've always wanted to be the best mom, but I can't redo everything. I can only promise to listen, to really listen. It was a small step, but it felt monumental, like the first crack in a wall that had stood for years. Sarah held onto Mark's arm tighter, grounding herself against the swell of conflicting emotions. Let us create a new way of talking to each other, Mark suggested, his voice softening. Christmas dinners don't always need to be surrounded by tension. Let us figure this out together. I want that, Sarah added, her voice steady now. I want a family where we can love each other, flaws and all. We don't have to be perfect. The guests began to murmur, nodding in agreement. They could see the initial cracks of vulnerability and connection forming, the power of family combating years of hurt and misunderstanding. Sarah's heart swelled with hope. But that hope came crashing back into uncertainty when Jacob's voice cut through the air again. And what if that new understanding means facing things you don't want to? Jake? Sarah's tone was cautionary, a warning that perhaps now wasn't the time. No, wait, Susan said, and her look of resolve returned. What if what lies underneath is something we should confront? Together, we've kept secrets long enough. Mark shifted, vulnerability flickering in his eyes. You mean like Dad? The room held its breath, the shadows of their past looming over them like dark clouds. Sarah could feel the atmosphere shift, tension morphing into something heavier, almost foreboding. Do we really want to open that Pandora's box? Mark's voice wavered, and a sense of dread filled the air. As Susan nodded, tears glistening at the corners of her eyes, a new silence settled in. If they dared to step forward, would they find healing or just more hurt? One thing was clear. The path ahead was about to plunge into deeper waters. Would they all be ready to swim, or would something break them apart for good? The tension crackled in the air, thick and suffocating. Sarah's heart raced as her mother's nod felt like both an invitation and a challenge. Could they really dive into the deep end? Mom, she said tentatively. If we do this, we need to be honest. No filters. No pretending. Her voice barely trembled, but the weight of her words felt enormous. Susan blinked, breaking the silence. You're right. I've held so much back, trying to protect you both. The guilt seeped into her words, but there was also a flicker of something stronger. Resolve. It's time for me to share everything. You deserve that. Mark let out a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. What happened during those years when we needed Dad, when we needed each other? A flicker of pain crossed Susan's face. It's not just about him. It's about what I didn't tell you. About the choices I made. The mistakes. She paused, tears welling. When your father left, I didn't just lose him. I lost my way, and I dragged the both of you into that darkness with me. Sarah's stomach flipped. She had always felt the absence of their father, the emptiness that echoed through their home. Yet hearing her mother acknowledge the weight of that absence unspooled an unexpected surge of anger within her. You let us live in that confusion. I was scared. Susan's voice broke, her hands shaking as she gripped the table. I thought if I shielded you, you'd never know the truth. But I see now it only deepened the wounds. The murmurs around the room intensified. Friends and relatives shifted uncomfortably, seeking the right words to support or defend Susan. But the focus was now firmly on Sarah and Mark, the undercurrents of a broken family pulling tighter. Do you hate me? Susan whispered, and in those simple words, Sarah could hear the cracks of a fragile mother struggling to hold herself together. No, Sarah breathed, moving closer. But I want answers. I want to know why you never talked about him? Mark interjected, frustration lining his tone. It's like we've been strangers in our own home. Susan nodded, tears streaming down her cheeks. I thought you'd move on, build your lives free of the baggage I carried. But instead, I caged us within this silence. A thick silence shrouded the room, and with it, Sarah felt the urge to scream, to push against the walls they had all built. What good does that do? We're already here, together, and we're hurting Mom. As she spoke, it dawned on her that it wasn't just about their father. It was about a family in pain, searching for strength to face the truth together. I need to know, Susan began, her voice trembling with the weight of a million untold stories. Just give me the chance to explain, to make it right. Make what right? Mark's voice rose again, raw with emotion. How can we trust you again? By being honest. By not holding anything back. Susan's gaze felt steady now, fierce even. Collective breaths were taken, a shared moment of awakening among the many faces surrounding them. Sarah could feel a crack opening up in the hardened surface of their family history. Are you ready for that? Sarah looked at Mark, then back to Susan. Can we move forward together? Mark asked, his voice softer now but still waiting for confirmation. But before Susan could answer, Jake, who had remained quiet until now, leaned forward. And what if the truth is uglier than you expect? What if it changes everything? The air shifted again, laden with uncertainty. Sarah felt her heart sink. The question had cut deep. What if? What if their family couldn't endure the truth, the jagged edges of their past? As they locked eyes, both apprehensive and hopeful, she knew the stakes had never been higher. Would they brave the storm ahead? Or would this moment break them? A new chapter was about to unfold, and the only way out was through. But would they emerge whole, or would they be forever altered? The silence hung in the room like a dense fog, each face reflecting a blend of anxiety and anticipation. Sarah felt as though she were teetering on a precipice, waiting for the truth to sweep in like a wave and change everything. Mom, she pressed, her heart racing. What happened? What choices did you make? Susan drew in a shaky breath, her eyes darting around the room as if seeking solace in the familiar faces. I thought if I kept secrets, I could shield you from pain. I thought I was protecting our family. Her voice quivered, each word woven with regret. But in reality, I was just protecting myself. Mark shifted forward in his chair, tense but intrigued. Is that why you never wanted us to talk about Dad? Because you were scared? Susan nodded, her vulnerability raw and palpable. Yes. Every time he crossed my mind, I felt this crushing weight. I didn't want you two to feel that hurt. I thought time would heal wounds I buried. And instead, Sarah interjected, you made us feel like we weren't allowed to ask questions. Like we were never supposed to know the truth. A flash of pain crossed Mark's face. I needed to understand who he was. Who we are. I know now that was wrong, Susan murmured, tears cascading down her cheeks. I underestimated how much you both needed to understand your past. I thought I was doing right by keeping you safe. Jake, still leaning in, broke his silence. But safety isn't always silence. Sometimes it's about honesty. His voice was gentle but firm. We can't heal what we don't reveal. The room buzzed with murmurs. Some nodded in agreement, others looked away, unable to face the impending revelations. Susan's shoulders slumped under the heavy gaze of her family. I can't hide from it anymore, she uttered, her hands trembling. Your father, he left because of choices I made. I had given up on myself long before he walked out. I thought abandoning the fight meant I could protect you. Mark clenched his fists, a mix of fury and sadness boiling within him. Protecting us by abandoning your own dreams? The question hung again, heavy with implication. Sarah felt the rising tension, the way each revelation punctured the protective bubble they had all lived in. The memories and shadows danced in the corners of her mind, taunts of a past unchecked and unaddressed. Maybe it's time to confront that pain? Mom, she said, her voice softening, but only slightly. It's time to face whatever truth has been hidden. Yes, Susan whispered, each word laced with an urgency that hinted at long-buried secrets waiting to be unveiled. I owe you both so much. It's time for you to know what truly happened with your father. Time to understand why I made the choices I did. A tremor went through Sarah. Was she ready? Did she really want to dive into the heart of it all, to navigate a terrain filled with hurt and loss? Yet, there was an undeniable spark growing deep inside her. The hope that perhaps shedding the weight of silence could also lift their family from darkness. Mark glanced at Sarah, their eyes meeting in a shared resolve. Whatever it is, we can face it. Together. Before they could dwell on the depth of that statement, the door swung open, and an unexpected voice blurted out, Hey, I thought I'd check in. What's going on? It was Elena, a family friend who had always managed to lighten the air. But now, her entrance felt like a jarring note in a symphony poised for resolution. We were just having a moment, Sarah replied, frustration bubbling just beneath the surface. Elena looked around, sensing the upheaval. Okay, noted. Guess I'll step out and no. Susan cried out, and for a moment, everything froze. Wait, maybe you should stay. The weight of the room shifted yet again, leaving everyone hanging on the thread of this new unveiling. What was meant to be an honest reflection now felt crowded by sudden uncertainty. Why did they suddenly want Elena here? What were they hesitating to share? Sarah's heart pounded. What other surprises awaited them now? As the tension swirled and fragile ties tightened, she realized that they only scratched the surface of their family's truths. Could this moment ultimately hold the key to their healing? Or would it lead to further unraveling? Time would only tell. Elena shifted her weight slightly, her eyes darting back and forth among the charged faces of Sarah, Mark, and Susan. All right, she said slowly, sensing the gravity of the moment. I didn't mean to interrupt. But if this is a big family discussion, then maybe I should hear it. But do you really want to? Sarah's voice barely managed to break through the thick tension in the room. This isn't a light topic. Elena inhaled deeply, her posture softening. If it's important to you all, then yes, I do. With a shared glance, Susan and her children felt that familiar wave of uncertainty wash over them again. This was no longer just about family secrets. They now had a witness to their unraveling. All right, Susan began, wiping her tears with the back of her hand, trying to compose herself. What I'm about to share, it could change everything. Mark leaned in closer, the heat of his emotions palpable. No turning back, then. The room seemed to shrink as Susan focused on their faces, her voice just above a whisper. Your father, he wasn't just absent. There were choices I made, choices I thought were right at the time. Choices I thought I was making for all of us. What choices, Mom? Mark pressed, his fists still clenched, desperate for clarity. She hesitated, searching her memories like a treasure trove filled with sharp objects and soft comforts alike. I let him go. When you both were small, I felt so overwhelmed. I thought I could keep it together, but I was falling apart. Instead of getting help, I started to push him away. Sarah felt her heart drop. You pushed him away? Why didn't you tell us? I didn't want to burden you. I thought if I stayed strong, you would be okay. Susan confessed, her expression almost childlike in its sorrow. But I only buried us deeper. I thought everything would get better if I just ignored it. That's just it, Mom, Mark replied, his voice rising. You didn't ignore it. You swept everything under the rug, and it affected us. It affected our choices, our relationships. A small silence settled in, and for a moment, they all forgot Elena was there. It was just them, raw and real, confronting the past that had clung to them like a second skin. I thought, if I stopped talking about your father, if I pretended he wasn't part of our lives, Susan said, her voice breaking, I would protect you. But I see now. I left holes in your story, and you both grew up not knowing who you really are. At that moment, Sarah could feel her own fears surfacing. Do you think we're just supposed to forgive you? Just like that? I know it's not that simple, Susan replied, her voice cracking. I came here today to finally have an honest conversation, to break this cycle of silence. Marcus' eyes shone with unshed tears, reflecting an anger that was now turning into understanding. But you have to understand, it won't just be okay because you say it is. We need to sit with this, to feel it. A flicker of hope danced in Sarah's heart. Can we do this together? Can we learn from this? Elena, who had been absorbing every word, finally spoke up. Healing doesn't happen overnight. It takes time, but honoring those buried truths is the first step. The weight of their emotions hung in the air, but there was a hint of something different, an opportunity to confront their pain rather than run from it. They looked at one another as if searching for signs of strength among their vulnerabilities. As Susan prepared to unveil more about their father, something caught her eye outside the window, a commotion on the street. A lovely bride in a flowing white dress was being lifted into the air by jubilant friends. The joy bursting through the gloom they were all wrapped in. Susan's voice trembled slightly. Life keeps moving, doesn't it? But what about us? Will we be able to celebrate our day too one day? In that moment, a question hung in the air, ready to be answered. Would they find the freedom to embrace their own happiness amidst this turmoil? They needed to know to turn this turning point into something greater. What secrets still lay in wait, waiting to be discovered among the stories of happiness and betrayal? Elena's heart raced. Outside, the laughter and music created a stark contrast to the heaviness in their room. She glanced at Susan, who looked as if she were drifting away from reality, caught up in her own memories. The bride was glowing, a picture of happiness that seemed to mock their painful moment. "Maybe that could be us someday," Sarah whispered, a glimmer of hope breaking through her anger. "Maybe we could find joy, too. Don't you see?" Mark interjected, his emotions flaring. "She's smiling because she hasn't had to carry the weight of our past. It must be easy to be happy when you're not living with the choices you've made." Susan's eyes flashed with both hurt and understanding. "Neither of you understands the weight that comes with every choice. I didn't want you to carry my regrets. I thought I was doing what was best." Elena felt the tension shift in the room. They were no longer just talking about the past. It was alive, breathing in their present, affecting how they saw each other and themselves. "Let us not turn away. We owe it to ourselves to face this," she said, her voice steady. "What are we scared of? Embracing love, joy, or even forgiveness?" Mark let out a humorless laugh. "Forgiveness? You think it's that easy? If we forgive you, what does that mean for us? Do we just forget everything else?" Susan's face crumpled, and for a moment, Elena wondered if she had struck the wrong chord. But Susan shook her head, determination washing over her features. "No, it doesn't mean forgetting. It means acknowledging the hurt and choosing to move forward." A sudden thought surged through Elena like a gust of wind. What if we took a moment? We all share our own feelings, no holds barred? Let us be loud, let us be messy. We can't have healing without truth, right? Mark exchanged glances with Sarah. Then, without saying a word, he nodded. Sarah mirrored the gesture. It was a silent agreement, a new beginning in that worn-out living room. Susan leaned forward, a glimmer of resolve sparking in her eyes. "Okay, but I need to share everything, even the things that are hard to hear." "Yes," Sarah said firmly, "and we will do the same. No more hiding. Just be honest." Elena thought of the bride outside, a symbol of celebration, of life undisturbed by shadows. We can find our way back to joy, but only if we embrace everything, the darkness and the light. Outside, the sounds of celebration grew louder, echoing through the walls as if the world was reminding them that happiness still existed, even amidst grief. "Let us begin. I'll start." Susan took a deep breath, steadying herself. "Your father, there was a reason I pushed him away. It wasn't just my weakness. There was more to it." Before she could continue, the doorbell rang. The abrupt noise startled them, an unwanted distraction in an already tense moment. They all exchanged wary glances, uncertainty bleeding through the unspoken emotions still hanging in the air. "Who could that be?" Sarah asked, her brow knitting in confusion. "I don't know," Susan replied, her voice trailing off as she moved to the door. What awaited them on the other side could either deepen their healing or unravel it altogether. Would they be ready for whatever truth lay just beyond their threshold? Susan hesitated, her hand hovering over the doorknob. The laughter from the party outside felt like a different world, a stark contrast to the tension that filled the room. She took a deep breath and turned the knob. As the door swung open, the smiles of the guests faded. Standing before them was a man, clearly shaken, his face pale and strained. Elena couldn't quite place him, but the weight in the air shifted instantly. "David?" Susan's voice was barely a whisper, and the name tumbled into the room like a stone dropped in a still pond, sending ripples of unease. "Can I come in?" he asked, his eyes darting around at the gathered group, feeling the scrutiny of the four watching him. "What are you doing here?" Mark demanded, his voice rising. "You shouldn't have come back." David stepped inside, a ghost from the past now crashing their fragile moment. "We need to talk. It's important about your father." Elena's heart sunk. The mention of her father hit her like a punch to the gut. Memories swirled in her mind, the laughter in the garden, the warmth of nighttime stories, all overshadowed by the conflicting truths they had been trying to piece together. "Don't you dare drag him into this," Sarah said sharply, crossing her arms. "Please, just hear me out," David pleaded, desperation lining his voice. "You don't understand. I never wanted to hurt anyone. I thought I was protecting you all. I made a mistake, and it's time you knew the truth." Susan's gaze bore into him, trying to read the sincerity behind his wild eyes. "What truth?" David glanced back over his shoulder as if fearing someone would appear behind him. "It's about the night his voice cracked, and he swallowed hard. The night he left. There was more going on than you all realized." "What do you mean?" Mark stepped forward, the anger blurring his vision with an unsettling mix of fear. I can't say more without you letting me explain. You all need to understand that it wasn't just his choice. I was there, I tried to stop it, but things spiraled out of control. I never wanted this for you, for your family." Elena felt her breath catch. The weight of his words pressed against her chest. Was this the truth they had been so desperately searching for? A different perspective on the choices that shattered their lives? "What do you want from us?" Sarah's voice held an edge, a protective barrier ready to block any more painful revelations. "I just need a chance to clarify things. I can't let your father's memory be tainted by the half-truths," he pleaded, his voice quivering. Silence fell around them as they processed his words, the reality hanging heavily in the air. They all stood there, caught between the past they'd been told and the unknown truths that hovered just out of reach. Susan glanced back at the group, her voice trembling as she said, "What if he's right? What if we've only pieced together a part of our story? Would it change how we see our memories?" Elena's pulse quickened. The door had been opened, yet now it seemed more of a gateway into new darkness rather than clarity. They had come to confront their past together, but what if this revelation drove them further apart? David took a step closer, his eyes pleading, "I can help you, but it won't be easy." Elena caught a glance from each person, no one standing on solid ground. Would they dive deeper into the unknown now waiting right in front of them, or retreat back into the safety of their old understanding? The sound of music and laughter from outside continued, a reminder that life moved on without them. As their silence pressed tightly around them, one question lingered like a shadow in the dim room. Were they ready to uncover the truth? Whatever it may be, would it heal them or tear them apart completely? And just then, the distant sound of a woman's joyful scream emerged from the party outside, drawing them back again to the celebration, a stark reminder of the choices yet to be made. Susan stood at the threshold, heart racing and mind spinning. David's presence was like adding fire to an already raging storm, but deep down she knew the truth had to come out, no matter how painful. "Can it wait?" Sarah interrupted, her voice trembling. "We are still trying to piece together our lives." "I know," David replied, desperation etched in every feature. "But if you want to understand what really happened, you need to hear this now." Mark stepped forward, anger radiating off him. "You think barging in here is the way to fix everything?" "It isn't about fixing," David responded sharply, meeting Mark's gaze head-on. "It's about revealing the truth that's long overdue. Your father meant everything to our family, and his departure affected us all in ways you're only beginning to understand." Elena glanced at Susan, who seemed trapped between her children and the man who held fragments of their past. "Mom, you have to decide. Are we ready for this?" Susan took a deep breath, her decision weighing heavily on her. "David, if we do this, you promise to be honest? No more secrets?" "Absolutely. You deserve to know the truth." He nodded, determination settling over his face. "Then go ahead," Susan said, her voice shaking but resolute. "Tell us what happened that night." David ran a hand through his hair, visibly steeling himself. "It was a regular evening. I had no idea anything was about to change. I was with your father at the bar, and we started to talk about everything that was weighing on him. He felt suffocated by expectations, so lost in emotions he couldn't share. He wanted out. But at the time, I never thought he would actually leave." Tension thickened around them, every word heavy with implications none had anticipated. He was in a dark place. He didn't want to abandon you, but he couldn't see how to stay without losing himself. David continued, looking at each of them. But then a fight broke out. Your father tried to break it up, to be a hero in a time when all he felt was weakness. But he was in the crossfire, the perfect storm he thought he could handle for your sake. Mark clenched his jaw. So it was an accident? What does that even mean? Does it excuse him for leaving in the first place? No, it doesn't, David said, urgency in his tone. But you have to understand, he left in a haze, thinking he was protecting you all from his unraveling. I thought he'd come back. We all did. A silence settled in the room. The words hung heavy as they faced the implications of what David had said. Your father, he wanted a second chance, but he felt lost. What he wanted most was to give you both a better life, a different future than the one he had, David added, his voice softening as he took a step closer to Susan. I never meant to hurt any of you. I just wanted you to see he fought for you even in his absence. Mark's shoulders sagged, the anger from earlier melting into confusion and sorrow. But he should have fought harder to stay. We needed him. I know, David said, voice thick with empathy. But he felt unworthy of being the man you both needed. He was drowning in his fears, letting them swallow him whole. Tears brimmed in Sarah's eyes. The fragmented pieces of the past were beginning to fit together, but the pain still held them captive. So all of this was just a misunderstanding? No, not just that. David shook his head. I'm not saying it was right. I'm saying it was complex. Life doesn't always let you choose your story. Susan's breaths were shallow as she wiped away tears. We all lived in silence, trapped by our own fears. I pushed him away to protect you both, but I pushed him too far. Mark stepped forward, looking David straight in the eye. Was it really about him? Or did you want something for yourself too? David nodded solemnly. It was selfish, wanting to shield myself from seeing him fade away. I knew I had to break it to you someday, but I kept thinking I could fix it all by not talking about it. They all stood in the quiet chaos, the sound of distant laughter drifting back in from outside, a reminder that life continued moving. Will you let us in now? Can we finally build something out of this? Elena's voice broke the silence, filled with hope despite the heaviness still lingering. I want to, David said, looking at each of them, but it has to start with truth. All of us, every family member getting to tell their side. It won't be easy. And we won't heal overnight, Susan added, her eyes glistening with a mix of fear and hope. But I will do whatever it takes to bring our family back. As the sun began to set outside, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, the intensity shifted from what had once seemed a chaotic maelstrom. It had morphed into a space of potential and raw honesty. Sarah took a deep breath, feeling the warmth of their shared understanding thawing the icy resentment she had clutched for so long. Then let us start fresh. We have the chance to reshape everything. Together, Mark added, the resolve strong in his voice. And with that, they embraced the unknown, ready to unravel the past together. They stood at the cusp of transformation, hearts open to whatever truth awaited, willing to break the chains that had held them down for far too long. In that moment, it became clear their family was and would always be a work in progress. But they would no longer dwell in silence. They would face the music, ready to redefine their story from hurt into hope and healing. As deliriously joyful cries echoed beyond the walls, it felt as though a new chapter was being written, one not just of pain, but of resilience, forgiveness, and a bond that would, at last, weave them back together. This moment would stand as a testament. No matter how deep the hurt, love still had room to flourish. And with the future expanded before them, the choice to heal rested solely in their hands. Now, if you felt this story in your heart, you need to subscribe now to the channel. This is the moment to show your support for more heartfelt journeys just like this one. Hit that like button now to feed the algorithm and keep authentic stories alive. And tell us your reactions and feelings about this ending in the comments. Your voices matter. Share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Don't wait not even one more second to spread the message of healing and connection.